Okay, good morning everyone. My name is Arjen Veneman. Welcome to my presentation about how we used Haxe to build an e-learning platform to create e-learning for a lot of different customers. I will tell shortly a little bit about myself. I'm a developer in the e-learning business for 12 years now. I started as a freelancer, and then later on I started my own company. And we're now with 4 people, 3 developers, 1 salesperson, and yeah, that's the team. And before I will dive into how we come to the end product, I want to show you 2 things. How the end product looks like, what we're building now, and what the workflow is. I will start with the workflow. The thing is, we have different assignments to build e-learning. So sometimes it has to look. Here you have a module with several chapters, but another time there is going to be a quiz. So we need to be very flexible about it. So at a certain point, we said we need to find a model-driven architecture, and I will show you. We came up with a UML class diagram modeler where we modeled the domain. So in this case, the customer wanted to have a module, and in the module there are several chapters. And this is an UML class diagram, and it can be exported to XML. I will tell you a little bit more about it later. The result is what you see here. Like this is the module view. There is a list view. I did the designs is not nice, but it's for the sake of the argument. Later on, I will show more nice things. And this is the view of the e-learning, and I want to show how we could come up with a way that we can add properties easily. So this is it, and you want to add, for example, duration. The module has a duration for 60 minutes. I'll go here to the model. I have the property here, duration. So I'm gonna save the model. I'm gonna rebuild the database, and without writing any code. Let's check if it's done. So I log into the CMS. I have duration here, and now I make 16 minutes of it. I'll save it, and I reload, and it's a property is added to the view. So this is the basis of our architecture. And how we come up with it, I'll explain later. And a e-learning application, in our case, consists of multiple sub-applications, or we call e-learning projects. And an e-learning project has an e-learning by itself, but it also has a content management system. It has a user LMS. A user LMS is the portal where the user logs on and can access his e-learning elements. And it has an administrative LMS where the coupling is done between users and what modules the user can take for the e-learning. There are a lot of standard tools available, but usually we get the projects where there is some custom needs. One example, this is something we're working on right now. It's about an academy for shoe polishing. And this is the client, so this is the user LMS. The user logs on. And it has some introduction, and there are some modules the user can take. And a module, when you start a module, you get, this is just a list of pages. So the module consists of pages. And on the pages there's content like a video or a multiple choice question or just text or an image. So this is a question, and so it's correct, and then you go to the next one. This is a multiple choice, etc. And all those, the content we have, for the content we have a WYSIWYG editor. This is the CMS for this project. It is built up a runtime, so it reads out the model and it knows, okay, I have something called learning bytes. These are the learning bytes, and the learning bytes have pages. And on the pages you open up a page editor where you can put stuff on it, and you can here specify some text, and you have what you see is what you get, only for the pages. So, but that's the thing where the most of the content is on. So yeah, that's the end product. So we usually we have different projects that look different and are structurally very different, but the CMS looks the same for every project. Only the relationships we have here are different. And how did we come about it? I have to go 7 years back, and when I started working with e-learning projects, and we had to find a way, because there is structural difference and there's visual difference, and we had to find a way to to not build it every time. So, for example, sometimes it's called a module, then it's another time it's called a level. You don't want to build write out the classes and the properties of the level every time. So we came up with a scheme where we found the invariance and the variance. And the variance is the things that may differ over the projects, and the invariance are the things that kind of always are the same. So data flow, of course the data may differ. Some object has different data, but the way it flows, for example, for the CMS, when you want to save something, it gets to the server interprets the things that need to change, and it calls some SQL statement. And that process, we made an invariant. So it's for every project, we didn't have to touch it. We didn't have to write any code for that. And how did that work? I showed you before. It's the UML class diagram. And we modeled it here. So in this case, we have a module, a chapter, and a page. And the module has a background image. And then we started to generate the code. That was 7 years ago, when it was still Flash and PHP. So we have the data model, and we started generating, and we come up with some value object, module, value object, chapter, controller, a few files. And a lot of also server files, usually mimicking exact the things that were runtime also on the client. It was kind of an overhead, but this was the way it worked. So leaving us with the following setup with a PHP server implementation. We had a Flex e-learning and a Flex CMS. And so every time we got a new project, we modeled it, we generated the code, and we had the CMS up and running, and we only needed to style the e-learning. But then, some customer came and say, I want to have the e-learning on the iPad. And so we needed to have a implementation on HTML, JavaScript. And we came to a situation where I liked Flex a lot. You could just compile your code, and you got the errors were clear, and I didn't want to go back to some script language, and so we started looking for alternatives, and then we found Haxe, but at the same time we didn't have time to rewrite all the code. So we did it step by step, and the first thing we did was rewrite to Haxe.js the e-learning part. And we made a couple of projects there, and then we also thought, well, now we need to go to let me explain. The team is pretty small, so we had a PHP developer, a couple of ActionScript developers, and the PHP and they were all freelancers because we couldn't provide them for 40 hours work. So sometimes they were not available. So also when we needed PHP, we had 2 ActionScript developers that didn't know PHP, and that guy was not available, so we had to wait for his availability. So then I heard also about Nico, so we rewrote the server to Nico, so even the Haxe programmers could also program on the server side, and still leaving us with a Flex CMS, but that stayed for some while because there was no real need to rewrite that one. At the time we went to the Nico server, we also thought, well, the model for the e-learning project is, the knowledge on the structure is already in the model, and we could generate it, and it will give you a lot of classes, and you have to compile it. And we thought, well, maybe we could have the model represented at runtime, and meaning that we called the Nico server an XME server. It's an XME is the XML for UML. So when you save the model, you get XML files. That's called XME, and it can be loaded runtime. So the information on what the classes are and the objects and the relations between the classes is in the XML or in the runtime representation of it. So that left us with a lot less classes and more flexibility. So we had, I have here a snippet of the data model. Now we used to create module VOs, services on the server side, but now we just left with some general view classes and a Nico backend that could interpret the XME files. And the XME files were is a representation of the UML class model. Of course, sometimes you need more specific stuff, more custom stuff for an object view. Now let me explain. The chapter as well as the module is represented in the view by the object view. So as I showed you before, when I added the property, there was that's the object view, and it contains a property view. So it was just added, and I didn't need to write a module view or a chapter view. There may be a need if you have very specific stuff that's not standard enough to be in the object view, and you can override the object view, and you say, well, now I'm trying to work with a module view, and I add the code that I want to. That's not standard. That's custom. So, and after this, we gradually also rewrote the CMS, and it kind of works the same. It takes the module from the XME files, and now we 90% of our code is in Haxe, and it did a lot with the team. We were much more flexible. Everyone could write server code as well as code for the client. It's strong typed. Knowledge sharing is very easy, and it's future proof. In the way this is a simplification of the libraries we have. We have core libraries, we have the server libraries, and for the specific HTML target, JavaScript target, we have a JavaScript library. Now, and if someone says, well, HTML is dead, and there is another technology, and Haxe will make a target of it, we just need to rewrite only this part of the code. So also the view classes are in the core, and there is some macro saying, well, when it's JS, do this, and when it's another technology, you can do something else. Let me check the time a little bit. Okay. This is something I already talked about, but it gives them a little bit more idea how it works. It's here I have the module view, and the module has two properties. It's the name and the duration, and they are represented as property views. The module has a one-to-n relation to the chapters, so and it's visible within the module view. So part of the module view is a list view, namely the view of a list of the chapters, and those are list item views that are chapters. And in fact, when you click on a chapter, the module view will go away, and there will be an object view for the chapter view. And how the flow works is that so we model in the tool. We save the XML files. They will be on disk in some project folder, which has the server has access to the project folder, and so the client starts. It goes to the index, and it doesn't know much yet, and it finds some configuration file. It says you're project 1. So the first thing that's done is he's telling the server, I'm project 1. I need to know what my structure is. The server will read out the XML files. It will make a runtime representation of it. It will give the XML of the runtime representation back to the client, and then the client knows its structure. So it knows, oh, I have to build up a module view. No, it builds up the module view. There's a chapter list view, and then a customer of the client clicks on a chapter. Then it will go to the server again. It will say, I'm chapter of project 1. I need to have my data. The server will interpret with the XML structure and will create SQL statements fetching the data for chapter and giving it back. So we have for every value object, we don't have it typed anymore. Every object is of type XML class, and the XML class is a description. So get to the model. This is an XML class, the module. And there is the XML class has XML attributes. Those are name, which have a type, duration. The advantages of this are we can uniformly define methods for database access. So whenever we have a change in the model, we don't have to write any code. We just need to recreate a database. We also work with fixtures, so maybe change the fixtures a little bit, but then it's the application is driven from the model. For the views, the same. We can uniformly define views for all the objects. And the thing is that, it's not type safe, so the compiler only knows about XML class and XML objects. So that's a little bit of a disadvantage, because when you're working with the objects, sometimes you need to get a value, and you need to know what the properties are, and there's nowhere except in the model where there's a description of the object or of the class. Yeah. Um, One other advantage of this is that the same backend can serve multiple projects. So we have project 1 with a certain structure, and we have project 2 with a certain structure, and they may differ a lot. But it's the same backend code that's serving them. And so we take advantage development time. We have a lot of projects and we can switch easily, and we just we switch to another project, and it's the same backend. Every folder of the project is on the same backend. That was quick, I think. But I can show a little bit more about the CMS. Or maybe first if there are any questions.
You mentioned that you had several freelance developers, PHP and JavaScript developers working with you, and then you made the switch to Haxe. Did you face any resistance doing that from these people saying like, well, we don't really want to change languages, or was it not really a problem?
There were PHP, the guy doing the PHP. I told him, oh, look at Nico and stuff, but he stayed with PHP. But the ActionScript developers were very easy. Turning into Haxe, it was not a problem. No. In fact, everyone working now has a background in ActionScript, so.
Yeah, my other question is, could your platform be used to, say, teach a programming language, build a system to teach Haxe?
Yes.
Some extensions to have some code input things.
Yeah. The thing is, the most work we do is the specific skinning. So every customer has its own look and feel, and in fact, you get Illustrator or Photoshop files, and you have to port that to the skins. And that's the most work.
Yeah, but just some online e-learning course.
Yeah,
we should maybe talk.
Yeah, okay.
Like if it has videos and text, it should be doable, right? Like if it's something more like clickable or interactive, where you actually like, I don't know, visually program. Like no, but they visually program it. That might be a little bit harder to integrate. Actually, another question: is there like a sort of like a community feature that you're using? Like, can the students actually talk to each other in some way?
Yeah, but we do it on request. So it's some social thing. So we made I think in the example for Franz Müller, let's check. Here is some social thing. So here you can place comments and people can react. Sometimes we also add forums to it. But from it's custom on top of.
It has been requested though.
Yeah.
The Flex library is pretty complicated. How did you convert the Flex into Haxe? Did you use Haxe UI or other libraries, or did you rewrite the components?
We wrote everything. So that was the hard part. We had some Flex standard, and then we needed to to convert it, and we built it up from the ground again. Yeah, and it's all jQuery JavaScript, and it was hard because also at that time there were a lot of browser differences. Nowadays it's a little bit better, but then you had 2 weeks hard work and it was done, and we all developed on Chrome, and then we had to do another 3 weeks to get it right on Internet Explorer. Yeah.
I have another question.
Yeah.
So since your data model is very flexible, how do you create those views? Because they're looking very nice.
You mean like
No, yeah.
this one?
Yeah. So how does the HTML, how does the data come in?
Yeah, I can elaborate a little bit on that. This is what we call a page view, and when we go back to the model, we'll see that's related to this one, to the page XME object. So when the client builds itself up, it gets to the page object, and it asks the registry, okay, I'm the page object. Is there some specific view for me? And if there's not, it gets the standard object view. But in this case, it gets the page view. And let me check page view. I'll just take one. Yeah, there's a lot of inheritance here, so let me go page this here. Yeah, the idea is that the object with the data is fed to the view, and the view has a relation to the XME object. Let me just go to object view. So yeah, here are the setters and the getters for the XME object. And at some point there is going to be a render, and then the view will, in case of JavaScript, will create a main div, like I'm the page object div, and then it will look at the XME class of the XME object. What are the properties? And it will run through the properties and create views for them, and always checking the registry. What is the registered view for the property?
And the HTML, can you show the HTML of one?
This one?
Yeah, for example.
Like this?
No, I mean in code. Or
The template.
yeah, the template, yeah. For yourself. Is there a template? I mean a template HTML?
No,
Or
no. It's like it's built up. Like we do it with jQuery. So we have the object, and we create properties on the div.
okay, so it's all done by code.
Yes.
Ah,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. There's no. Yeah. It's
There's
all.
no
It's all
HTML.
dynamic. Yeah. So that leaves us when we need to skin. This is the skin for this one. And here I'm saying, okay, there is something like object module. We're using Flexbox a lot, and this is the background color, and this is the image, and this is the list view for the chapters. So we have the model, and then we generate them with CSS. We specify how it looks.
If I wanted to use the tool, is it available online? How do we get access to it? And is it SCORM compliant? Is that something you can put on an open source LMS?
Yeah, it's SCORM compliant. We export to SCORM. To SCORM 1.2 and SCORM 2004. It's not available because it's an internal tool. We use it as a for us to do business, but we are thinking about putting something available open source, but it will take time, and yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you all.